An Al-Qaeda group gaining strength in Africa has the capacity to strike within North America. The dire warning comes from a top U.S. general who calls the countries of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger the epicenter of terrorism. This as the RCMP say terror charges in this country have jumped by a shocking 488% in a year. To discuss this threat, we'll be joined by Robert Fowler, former diplomat in the region. In 2008, Fowler was posted by the United Nations as a special envoy to Niger. While trying to negotiate a solution to the conflict on the ground, Fowler and his colleague were kidnapped by Al-Qaeda. They were held hostage in the Sahara Desert for 130 days. Robert Fowler was also former foreign policy advisors to three prime ministers, Prime Minister Mulroney, Turner, and Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Thank you so much for joining us today, Bob. It's great to see you.
It's a pleasure, Mercedes.
Having been somebody who is being kidnapped by Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, having seen this terror up close, is it frustrating to you to see how out of touch the Canadian government, Canadian media, Canadians in general are with what is happening in West Africa right now?
Yes, though I regret to say it's not surprising. And it's not just the Canadian government. It certainly is the government to our south, and it certainly is most of the European governments. I mean, that area used to be called French West Africa. It was France's, and they have been kicked out of every one of their former colonies in that area. They did provide a certain amount of stability. They did intervene to stop massive expansion on a couple of occasions, particularly in 2013. They're now not there. The Americans have been told to go away. They closed a major base in Niger, where they were running drones and creating a lot of useful intelligence. So that's a free fire area for Al-Qaeda now. It's the largest Al-Qaeda franchise in the world, and it's growing massively.
There was a warning that came out last week from the U.S. general running Africa Command, saying these groups are not just a danger in Africa. The U.S. military believes they have the ability to strike America, and by extension, potentially Canada. Do you share that concern?
Well, we have evidence of it's having happened in the past in relatively isolated incidents. But both in the States and Canada, I mean, we have extremely large Islamic populations growing significantly. I don't want to suggest for 1 second that we should be worried about Muslims, but there are extremists in those communities. I mean, the guy who wanted to blow up LAX was from Montreal. We've had certainly other examples of people who have heeded Al-Qaeda's call to individual acts of violence against governments, against crowds of people. And obviously we have to be vigilant about that. But I think it is fair to say that Islamic terrorism has not been beaten. Whatever success we've had in Iraq and the non-success we had in Afghanistan hasn't in any way blunted the jihadi movement. And so, yes, we're going to have to be extremely vigilant.
What do you think a solution is to that? Is there one? I know it's extremely complicated, but what could Western governments be doing?
Well, I probably should start off by saying whatever they should be doing, they won't be doing. For all kinds of reasons, most of which have nothing to do with Africa and the region, is that there are other issues and other concerns, and everybody needs money for those different things, and that doesn't leave much for Africa. Will be the result. There's nothing we can say that will dissuade those people from doing what they're doing. I certainly learnt that in the sand. They are not amenable to a logical argument of, wouldn't you rather do something else? They are deeply, absolutely committed and are evidently prepared to die in that commitment. So it would take a very large and serious effort to eradicate them, because they won't be convinced not to do it. The French had 5,000 top-line soldiers there for years, and they didn't manage to do it. It would take much more than that, but no, I don't think we have the will to do that.
One of the questions about will, of course, and limited resources is how much we should be spending on defense. And I know it's something that you've thought about and written about a lot. In this discussion, as NATO is talking about going to a 5% target instead of 2%, the government saying they're going to spend more, but no really clear plans on it yet. How much more do you think that we should spend on defense?
I don't like those percentage numbers much, because the answer to your question is a whole lot more. And our current performance at, I don't know, I'll now retreat into percents, but 1.36 or whatever it is now is really pitiful. It's not pitiful because it's 1.36%. It's pitiful because we are not defending Canadians. And certainly I believe there's a deep obligation of governments to do that. We have been getting a free ride from the Americans. We don't have to love the American administration. We don't have to think nice things about President Trump. But that doesn't mean he isn't wrong when he criticizes our defense performance. He is right. We have been getting for years a free ride, particularly in continental defense. And certainly I believe that the current American government is very clear. We will play an adequate part in continental defense, or they will do it their way. And their way has nothing to do with us.
Does that mean that Canada should participate in the Golden Dome missile defense system?
First of all, I don't know what the Golden Dome is. I know the...
I'm not sure anyone knows exactly.
I think that's the issue. But to put it much more practically, do I think that Canada should fully participate in NORAD's ballistic missile defense initiative? The answer is hell yes. I mean, to me, it's absolutely illogical to say that, well, no, we're going to concern ourselves below 50,000 feet. So we're going to worry about bombers, maybe cruise missiles.
Shoot down a passenger jet. That's on that list.
Balloons seem to be a problem, but nevertheless, we'll worry about that. But we won't worry about the much more modern present threat of ballistic missiles that can be nuclear armed, that can carry hyperspeed cruise missiles, bring them into the atmosphere and launch against targets at 7 times the speed of sound. So no, we I think very much have to convince the Americans, yes, that we are doing our bit, that we are sovereign and are committed to remaining so, and because I think Canadians deserve that kind of defense of their territory.
If Prime Minister Mark Carney was sitting right here, as a former advisor to 3 prime ministers, what advice would you give to him?
Sign on.
That's it. There you go. That's straightforward.
So he has said in the face of this Golden Dome discussion, he has said that we will look at it and we'll talk about it. Well, I think that's a very wise thing to say, because I don't think he knows any more than you or I what it is yet. But the Israelis have proved that their Iron Dome works, not perfectly, but works pretty well. Now, is anybody suggesting that that same kind of defense be extended over an area that is, I think, 1,000 times the size of Israel? No, but that doesn't mean you couldn't protect parts of it, key parts of it, and if key parts of it are protected, people will be much less inclined to attack the rest.
Bob Fowler, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome, Mercedes. It's been fun.